She was on the ground, knees in dust, hammer clenched so tight her knuckles were pale, breath shaking, one floorboard already split, another loose at the edges. She'd heard it again, the sound, faint, dragging, like something trying to breathe under the wood. The lantern burned low beside her. She pressed her ear to the boards. Nothing. Waited. Then, there it was. A soft pull, like paper moving where paper shouldn't be. She stood up, swung the hammer. The board cracked. She yanked it up with both hands. Dust billowed. Something under it flinched. Not alive, just brittle and hiding. Her fingers brushed the edges of something dry, wrapped in muslin, stained dark at the corners, folded tight and stuffed into the crawl space. She sat back on her heels. Unwrap it slowly. A map. No town names, no roads, no legend. Just faded red lines, sharp corners, a drawn cabin, a mark that looked like a crying eye. She traced the ink with her fingertip. The air shifted. Then the front door creaked. She looked up fast. No one, just wind. She gathered the cloth and map in her lap and stared at the floorboard still rocking on its nail. It hadn't been nailed down right. Too loose. Like someone wanted it found. She didn't sleep. In the morning, she laid the map on the kitchen table and lit the stove. Though she wasn't cold, the heat settled around her shoulders like a warning. The ink looked fresher in daylight. It bled like real blood. She didn't recognize the place marked, but the outline of the woods, the slope of the river, it wasn't unfamiliar. She'd seen these shapes on her father's boots, etched into his soles from the mud he'd bring home. She ran her thumb over the place marked X. It wasn't where a town would be. It was deeper, past old ridges, somewhere between what they called Widow Road and the hills that still carried fire scars. Mama? Her boy, small, still barefoot from bed. She turned fast and folded the map. Too fast. He blinked. What's wrong? Nothing, baby. Just cold this morning. It ain't. She smiled softly. Eat. I'll boil eggs. By noon, she was in town. She didn't say much when the sheriff opened his door, just unwrapped the map and laid it on his desk. He stared, didn't touch it. Have you seen this before? She asked. Silence. You know where it points. He didn't move. Sheriff, he looked up slowly. Where'd you get this? Under my floor. His jaw worked. Whose house? You know whose. He leaned back. The chair creaked. He stared at the red mark again. You should burn it. You gonna tell me why? He didn't. You recognize that handwriting? She asked. He did. She saw it in his face. I asked you plain. He nodded once. Your mama had hands like a bird, but she pressed hard when she wrote, broke pencils clean in half. So it's hers. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. He stood, walked over to the stove, poured 2 mugs of weak coffee, brought her one, didn't sit again. That cabin ain't on any deed, ain't on any town record. Still real? He didn't answer. She sipped. The mug clanked on the desk when she set it down. You said once my mama drowned. He blinked slowly. You said the well gave her back a ribbon, and that was enough. He said nothing. But now there's a map under her house, and you still go like your boots are just filled with blood. He moved then, fast, slammed his hand on the desk. That cabin doesn't exist. She flinched. He lowered his hand slowly. You don't want to see what's there. That night, she couldn't stop folding the map. Over and over. Her boy is asleep in the next room. She sat on the kitchen floor and laid out the pieces of muslin. The cloth smelled of oil, sweat, and something deeper. There were symbols around the edges. Small, deliberate. A stitched mouth, a bent cross, a broken door. She didn't recognize the symbols, but they made her chest ache. She thought of her mother's hands, how they used to shake when she stirred stew, how she never looked west after the sun dropped behind the trees. Something had scared her for years, something she never said aloud, and now a map, and a mark, and ink that didn't fade. She tucked the map in her coat, loaded her old rifle, wrote a note, gone a day or two. Feed the chickens. Don't open the door if he knocks. Dawn came with frost. She left on foot, left the boy with the neighbor girl and a lie in her teeth. Her boots crushed dead grass, then gravel, then nothing but dirt. She followed the ridge lines like the map showed, cut through the old orchard, past Widow Road. Hours passed. Birds didn't call. No dogs barked. Every step felt like a memory, like the land already knew her souls. She stopped once for water, once to fix her coat. By evening, the air smelled wrong. The trees stood too still. And then she saw it, the outline of a cabin, half sunk into earth, roof sagging, smoke curling thin. The baby's cry came faint. Real, too real. She crouched, waited. The crying didn't stop. She moved closer. Her feet barely made a sound. No wind, no birds. Just the one sound, fragile, broken, repeating. A baby, inside a cabin, far too deep in land that shouldn't remember children anymore. She spread the map flat on the table under the oil lamp. The cloth was still damp near the folds. Her hands trembled, but not from the cold. The ink didn't smear, didn't even fade. It looked fresh, like it had been written the night before. Red lines crisscrossed the yellowed muslin. No compass, no legend, just shapes and curves, and a thick X at the top corner where the woods turned black. No towns, no names, just a cabin, and the crying eye symbol drawn beside it. She stared at that eye, then at the handwriting hard-pressed loops, angular slants, letters that always leaned left. She'd only seen it once before, a list of pie ingredients shoved to the back of a drawer, old paper, oil-stained. At the bottom, love, mama, same L, same curl at the end of the A. Same angry pressure like every letter was fighting to be written. She dropped into the chair hard. Her breath caught. Mama never wrote past her own name, she whispered. Someone knocked. 3 hard raps, then 1 soft. She stood fast, folded the map quickly, tucked it in her coat. The lantern flickered as she stepped to the door. She didn't speak. Another knock. Girl, a voice said. Rough, dry, familiar. Sheriff ain't sleeping. Thought I'd check. She opened it slowly. He stood there, hat off, boots muddy. You all right? No. He looked past her, saw the lantern, smelled the oil. Can you find anything else? No. You sure? I said no. His eyes narrowed. That map wasn't for you. Wasn't for you either. He stepped inside without asking. She backed toward the table. You think I don't remember that ink? He said. She didn't answer. I remember when it showed up. A long time ago. The governor had paper marked like that. Red letters. Seals that bled through envelopes. She watched him. Didn't blink. You said that the cabin doesn't exist. It doesn't. Then why are you shaking? He stared at her. Have you ever seen your mama write anything but her name? No. She barely spoke. Hands shook too much. Then who drew it? He looked at the lantern again. Someone with reason to lie. She opened the stove door and dropped a log inside. The fire snapped. Cabin's not on any record, he said again. You already told me. It's past Widow Road. That's not safe. You ain't either. He almost smiled. She kept her hand near the drawer that held her father's knife. Are you going up there? I don't know yet. You do. She didn't deny it. Leave the child here if you go. Her stomach turned. Don't speak to my boy. He stepped closer. He doesn't need to see what's up that ridge. You have. He didn't answer. The sheriff left after an hour. Didn't take his coffee. She locked the door behind him and waited, watched the road till his shape faded, then pulled the map back out, laid it flat again. There was something else near the cabin she hadn't noticed before, a mark like a looped ribbon. She got the old biscuit tin from the pantry. It opened slowly, pulled out scraps her mother left, thread, buttons, 2 small handwritten prayers. She found it under the scraps. A pink ribbon, faded, thin. The loop at the center is exactly like the one drawn on the map. She remembered the day she found her mother on the porch, crying, holding that ribbon in her fist. She'd asked why. Her mother never answered. She held it now, pressed it to the cloth beside the ink. The lines matched. Same loop, same curl, same fear. She didn't sleep. She sat at the table, lantern low, until the oil ran out. Then she sat in the dark. Her boy stirred once in the other room. She heard him whisper a name in his sleep. Not hers. Not anyone they knew. He said Jonas. She hadn't heard that name since she was 10. A neighbor boy. Gone one night. His mama had stitched a quilt with his name across it, then buried it by the well. People said she'd gone mad, but she never gave back anything. Not like hers had. In the morning, she took the map to the back porch, unfolded it under full sun, ran her fingers across every symbol. The red didn't fade. She held the ribbon beside it again. Then she looked at the spot marked X and whispered again. Mama never wrote past her own name. Her voice didn't echo, but she felt something shift in the dirt beneath her boots. Like the house remembered. She didn't tell her boy, didn't tell the neighbor girl either, only left him with a basket of boiled eggs and a note that said, "He knows how to feed the goats. Don't let him near the fence." She took the ribbon, took the map. I took the knife, left the photograph of her mother on the mantel, face turned toward the window. Then she walked north. No horse, no cart, just her boots, and the red lines folded deep in her coat, and the crying eye burned into her mind. The sheriff's office was colder than it should have been. He hadn't lit the stove. Dust hung in the corners, like no one had moved furniture in weeks. Her boots hit the floor loud. He looked up from his desk, slow, like he'd expected her or feared her. Maybe both. She didn't sit, just pulled the map from her coat, folded twice now. She laid it down flat. He didn't speak. He stared. "You recognize it," she said. He didn't nod, didn't flinch. "Where's that cabin?" Still nothing. The symbols, the red ink, the loop by the tree line. He looked away, jaw tight. "Have you seen this before?" He picked up the map, held it like it stung. "You should burn it." Not answering me. "I am. You're dancing around the words." "I said burn it." "Why?" He let the map fall flat again. "Because nothing good comes north." She leaned closer. "You said my mama drowned, said the well gave back a ribbon, and that was the end of it." He stayed quiet. "You lied." "I buried what I had to." "Did you bury her?" His eyes twitched. "We found what she left." "What did she leave?" "A scream." He moved around the desk. His boots creaked across the floor, slow. He looked tired. More lines around the eyes than she remembered. "You really don't want to go up there." "I already am." "You'll take your boy?" "No." He nodded once. "Good. What's up there?" He sat down in the chair by the stove, leaned back like it hurt. "There's no name for that place. Just a point. Just silence." She crossed her arms. "Speak plain." He rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Your mother wasn't the first woman to go missing north of that line. Wasn't the last. But she came back. She came back wrong. You said she drowned. I lied. Why?" "I thought she wanted it that way." The room felt smaller now. She stepped forward. "You knew about the cabin?" "Yes." "And the map?" "Yes." "Who else knows?" "No one talks about it." "I'm not asking what people talk about. I'm asking who knows." He paused. "The governor knew. Maybe it still does. The county clerk found a set of red maps like that in a rusted file box. That was 15 years ago. She's dead now. She saw what was on them. Enough to burn them. But not this one." He looked at her again. "Where'd you find it?" "Under the floor." He stared too long. "The house still creaks in the night." "Always." He swallowed hard. "Does your mama ever tell you what she ran from?" "She never talked." "Did she ever show you what was under her skirt?" "What the hell kind of question is that?" "Just answer." "No." "Then don't go north." She didn't move. "You buried her secrets. I'm not burying mine." "You think it's a secret. You think it's a pain you can name. But up there," he shook his head, "it's something older." She picked up the map. I rolled it slowly. "Tell me what she saw." He looked down. "I was a deputy back then. Just a boy. They told me not to ask. Told me not to follow when she came stumbling out of the woods covered in blood. That wasn't hers. She didn't breathe. She dropped that same ribbon on the station floor. No shoes, no voice. Just that look in her eyes like something followed her out." "What happened to her?" "We locked her up for a week. I tried to make sense of it. She carved symbols into the wall, over and over." "The same ones on the map?" "Same." "And then?" "She went quiet. One morning she was gone. Just gone. Cells still locked. Nothing broken. Just a breeze coming through the wall like it wanted out." Her voice was cold now. "And you told the town she drowned." "It was easier." "For who?" "For everyone left." She moved toward the door. He stood. "You go north. You bring back more than questions." "I already have questions." "You ever think maybe you were born up there?" She stopped. He stepped close. "You were really small when she came back. No one remembered her being pregnant. No midwife had a record. Are you saying I came from that cabin?" He didn't answer. "Are you saying I don't belong here?" "I'm saying." "You don't belong there either." She opened the door. He slammed his hand on the desk. The sound rang loud, final. "The cabin doesn't exist." She didn't turn back. Her fingers grazed the rim of the well. The stones were still damp. Even after all these years, The boards that once covered it were cracked down the middle, slanted. One nail is gone, the others rusted crooked. She remembered when they sealed it. Her uncle swung the hammer like he was afraid of what might push back. Her mother was standing behind the porch rail, not blinking once. They said it was for safety, but it was silence they were after. She knelt, ran her hand along the wood. Something had been scratching it. From underneath. She stood and looked around. The field was empty. House sagged back behind her. Then she kicked one board in. It felt easy. She leaned forward, careful, hand on the stone edge. The hole stared back, black and deep. She listened. Nothing. Then, faint, a scrape, like something shifting. She stepped back fast. The house still held its shape, barely. Her mother's old place, empty 10 years now. She opened the door slowly. Dust clouded. The smell hit first. Pine sap and something rotten beneath it. "Mama?" she whispered, half a joke, half not. The kitchen table still sat where it always did, one leg bent from years of weight. Her fingers traced the marks on the wall behind it, the ones no one ever sanded out. Small tallies, days maybe, or names. In the bedroom, the bed was stripped. The window is open. A breeze moving the edge of an old paper stuck under a trunk. She pulled it out, folded tight. Ink faded, but she recognized the handwriting. Her mother's. Just 5 words. "Don't trust what cries first." She folded the note and stuck it in her coat. Outside, she found the shovel by the porch, still where they left it. The handle was dry, cracked, but it held. She dragged it to the well. I stood over the hole again. The wind had picked up. Not hard, just enough to hum through the boards. She pushed another plank. It groaned, then snapped. She leaned again. Still no bottom. She grabbed a rock from the grass, dirt still clinging. Hold it in her palm for a second, then dropped it. No sound. She waited. Waited longer. Nothing. Someone cleared their throat. She turned fast. An old man stood at the fence line, hat low, hand resting on the post like he'd always been there. "Thought you weren't coming back," he said. She didn't speak. "Your mama wouldn't have wanted you digging." "I'm not digging." He glanced at the boards. "Looks like it." She stood straight. "What do you want?" "I came to check the fence. Cows get loose." "You ain't had cows in 5 years." He smiled a little. "Still my land." "Not this part." He walked closer, slow, stopped by the broken plank. "Your mama used to sit here at night, after she came back." "I know." "She talked to the well." "I know that too." "Does she say anything to you?" "Never did." He nodded like that hurt. "You still hear her?" he asked. "Sometimes." He looked down the hole. "Ain't sealed good." "No." "I told your uncle he didn't do it right. Said something would come out." She looked at him. "What came out?" He shrugged. "Your mama." She walked past him into the shed. It smelled worse. Old kerosene. Rust. She pulled up the tarp in the corner. The quilt box was still there. Her mother's hands had stitched it shut, but time tore the seams loose. Inside, rags, bone buttons, a pair of leather baby shoes, and under that, a wrapped bundle. She opened it slowly. A child's dress. Blood on the collar. Not rust. Blood. She held it in her lap. I sat there for a long while. When she came back outside, the old man was gone. But something else was near the well. She stepped closer. $1. Wooden. Carved face. Her mother had burned that doll in the stove when she was 7. She'd watched it melt. Now it sat by the well like it never left. She didn't sleep that night. Built a fire in the old house. Sat by it, rifle near her lap. She kept the map open beside her, ran her fingers along the red lines, the loop near the woods, the X by the ridge, the crying eye. She didn't dream, didn't close her eyes. Just wait. Waited until the dark got thin, and the well let out a breath. The next morning she checked the boards again. Something had moved them in the night, shifted them, not torn, placed differently. One plank leaned sideways. A new scratch across it, wide and clean. Not an animal, carved with something sharp. A single word. Home. She dropped another stone. Waited. No sound. Her feet crunched frost. The trail narrowed as she moved north. Wind pushed through the bare trees in slow fits. She'd been walking for hours. The map was tucked in her coat pocket, but she didn't need to check it. The trees told her where she was. Carved names. Girls' names, some old, some recent, all scratched into bark, all crossed out. She ran her fingers along one, EMMAL, deep cut and angry. A single line slashed through it. A few steps later, Clara J. crossed twice, then another, Lydia. No cross, just a question mark under it. She pulled the map. I looked at the spot near the ridge. The crying eye was getting closer. A crow landed on a branch ahead, cawed twice, and flew off. She didn't flinch, didn't look back, didn't stop when her boots hit ice. The trail dipped into a gully lined with old fences and stones shaped like teeth. She saw a coat snagged in a tree, faded blue, child-sized, still hanging. She kept walking. Near the base of the hill, she saw the first marker, a wooden stake in the ground wrapped in cloth. She crouched beside it. The cloth was embroidered. Just 2 initials, M.E. The ground around it had been disturbed recently. She stood. "I'm not here for you," she said aloud. A breeze answered. Further on, the second stake was taller, painted white. No cloth, just a strip of hair tied around the top. Blonde. She turned quickly. Nothing behind her, nothing but frost. The trees changed at the ridge, grew closer, grew darker. The symbols came next. Not names, not letters. Carvings. A circle with a line through it. An open eye. A cradle shape. She didn't touch those. Didn't even stop. Just kept moving. By late day, her throat was raw from the cold. She hadn't eaten. I didn't feel hungry. The trees opened briefly at the bend. That's where she saw the quilt, hung between 2 trunks like a flag. Faded. Frayed. Red thread stitching names in rows. Some names matched the ones carved in trees. Some didn't. One name stopped her heart. June. Her mother's middle name. Not crossed out. Still whole. She touched the fabric. It was warm. She pulled her hand back. Past the bend, the frost thickened. Her boots left deeper prints. The trees thinned. Then she heard it. Faint. A single cry. Far ahead. Too far to be real, but too sharp to ignore. She didn't move at first. Just stood. Listened. The cry came again. Short. Shaky. Like something pretending to be small. She stepped forward. Then another step. Then stopped. Branches above her shifted. Something ran. Fast. She couldn't see it. Just heard the snap of ice and a whisper that didn't come from her mouth. A new tree stood beside her. Fresh carving. Not a name. Just one word. Her. Not crossed. Not finished. The knife marks were still raw. She reached into her coat, pulled out the map, unfolded it. The cabin wasn't far now. 1/2 mile, maybe. She pressed her hand over the crying eye, closed her own, breathed. Then I walked. Each step after that felt watched. Every tree leaned. Every sound ducked behind her breath. Even the wind changed. Then the cry came again. Closer, too clear, too human. She stopped. Another name carved into bark. This one was hers. First and last. Spelled right, not crossed, not yet. She stared at it a long time. Then I kept walking. The road curved one last time. A small clearing opened. The cabin stood at the center, smoke from the chimney. The door shut. No path, no footprints. But the crying didn't stop. It rose as she stepped closer, then it paused, then it laughed. She stepped into the clearing, rifle in hand. The cabin stood crooked in the snow-worn grass. Boards bowed, roof slumped like something had knelt on it. Smoke rose in a thin line from the rusted chimney. She scanned the windows. No movement, but the cry came again. One sharp, wet sob, like a baby trying to breathe through its throat. She gripped the rifle tighter. The door was latched from the outside. She crouched, ran her hand along the latch. Cold iron, heavy. She didn't open it. Not yet. She leaned close to the wood. Hello? No answer, just the wind moving. And the cradle, rocking. Inside the dark window, the cradle moved, slow and steady. The crying paused, then started again. She circled the cabin. Each wall told a different story. Scratches, burn marks. On the back wall, 3 long nails held a strip of fabric. She pulled it. It came off clean. A baby's bonnet, hand-stitched, pink with faded flowers. On the inside, 2 initials, CD. She pocketed it, turned back to the door. Still latched, still rocking. She lifted the latch. Slow, quiet. The wood creaked as it fell. She pushed the door open with the muzzle of the rifle. It groaned like it hadn't been moved in years. Inside, it was warm, too warm, and the air smelled like old milk. She stepped in. One room, cradle in the center, rocking. Nobody touched it. No string, no draft, just rocking. She didn't move for a long moment. Then slow, she stepped closer. A blanket covered the child, crocheted, handmade, pink and brown, same thread her mother used. She crouched, pulled the edge back. The baby was pale, eyes wide open, not crying now, just watching. She reached forward. The baby didn't flinch. She touched the blanket again. Pinned to it, a note. Folded once. She pulled it free. I opened it. 4 words written in black ink. Don't give him a name. She read it again. Then I looked at the child. He blinked. Footsteps on the porch. She turned fast, raised the rifle. Nothing there. She stepped to the door. I looked outside. No tracks. Just snow. Just trees. The cradle stopped. She looked back. The baby smiled. Who left a baby in there? Her voice cracked as she said it. Nobody answered. She didn't expect them to. She stayed with the baby for 2 hours. Didn't speak. Didn't touch him again. Just watched. The stove in the corner had warm coals inside, but no wood stacked near it. She opened the stove door. Inside, burned paper. Half-melted wax. Something metal bent. She dug it out with the fire poker. A ring. Plain. Inside it, a name scratched deep. Jonas. She sat by the door, the map unfolded in her lap. The crying eye pointed here. Right here. She looked out the window. The trees hadn't moved, but she felt them watching. She wrapped the baby tight. He didn't protest. Didn't cry. Just blinked. She stepped outside with him. The air hit sharp. His eyes didn't water. He stared past her, toward the woods, toward where the map said not to go. She walked around the cabin again, looking for signs, for anything that would say whose cradle this was. Nothing, only the bonnet in her pocket, and the name in the ring. She whispered, Jonas? The baby blinked, smile again. She stepped back, heart heavy, eyes burning. The cabin door swung shut behind her. She didn't touch it. The baby reached for her. Collar. She didn't pull away. She just said it again. Who left you here? The wind picked up, carried a sound not from her mouth, not from the baby. A woman's voice, close, breathing, not speaking, just breathing. She turned fast, rifle raised, baby still in her arm. The wind stopped. The woods stood still. She backed toward the cabin. The door didn't open, didn't move, didn't want her back. She looked at the baby again. He blinked. Same smile, like he'd been waiting, like she came late. She lifted the baby. He stopped crying the second she said, Jacob. Not loud, just enough for the wind not to steal it. His eyes didn't blink, just stared, still and wide, like he knew something she didn't. She held him tight. The blanket bunched between them. Her fingers found the edge of the note again, the one pinned above his heart. Don't give him a name. Too late. He looked at her like he already had one. Inside the cabin, the cradle creaked empty. The door hung open behind her. She sat on the edge of the stove bench, still holding him. He was warm, not too much, not like the stove-warmed air, something steadier. She said it again, quieter. Jacob. He moved then, shifted just a little in her arms, not reaching, not fidgeting, just adjusting, like he'd heard it before. She pulled the blanket down to see him better, pale skin, blue veins beneath, hands small but tight in the fists. There was a mark on his shoulder. She leaned closer, a bruise. No. Something older, a shape, 3 curved lines. She ran her finger across it. It didn't fade, didn't flinch. She looked again at the blanket. It wasn't stitched like anything from town. Too perfect. Each corner folded exactly. The thread along the edges was thick, rough. She touched it with her nail. It frayed like wire. She wrapped him tighter. He didn't protest. Jacob, she whispered. He smiled. That broke her. She looked out the window. Still no tracks. Still no one is coming. She stood, walked to the door. Nothing but woods and silence. No voice, no wind, but she could feel something outside. She stayed inside. Who left you here? He didn't blink. She paced now, baby against her chest, rifle hanging off her shoulder. The floor groaned under every step. She tried to count her breaths. I tried to count him, matched the rhythm. Her mother used to say babies knew what we forgot. She used to hold her brother in one arm and stare out the window like she was waiting for something to come back. She walked to the corner of the room. A trunk sat half buried in dust. She kicked it open. Inside, clothes. Old, men's, and something folded in cloth. She laid the baby on her coat by the stove and unwrapped the cloth. Letters, all sealed. One broken. She read the inside. To whoever finds him, he's not the first, but he has a better chance. The others had names. That's what I did. Names make them real, make them stay. If he answers, don't believe him. She looked at Jacob. He was sleeping, one fist against his cheek, soft breath, still smiling. She searched the rest of the cabin, a metal tin under the cot, a matchbook with the county emblem, governor's initials etched on the back, and a jar of black powder tucked beneath floorboards that didn't fit right. She opened it. Inside, ashes, white bone flakes, too small to be anything but a child. She dropped the jar. It didn't break. She went back to Jacob. Kneeling, she watched him sleep. Her hands shook again. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the bonnet. Hold it near him. He shifted, then reached for it. Fingers just barely brushing the ribbon, she pulled it away. He whimpered. Software short. She held the bonnet to her own nose. It didn't smell like thyme, didn't smell like fire or dust. It smelled like soap, like newness. I had a brother, she said. No response. He died before I was born. She looked at the baby again. You know his name? The baby stared, didn't blink. She leaned closer. Jacob. He smiled again. She almost dropped him. She wrapped him tighter, held him against her, pressed her hand to his chest. His heart beat too slow. Not wrong, just off, like he wasn't made for this place, or like he was made too long ago. She stood, rifle in one hand, baby in the other, stepped out onto the porch. The woods didn't move, but she felt them breathe. She walked down the steps. Snow crunched beneath her. She turned one last time. I looked back at the cabin. The door swung shut behind her. She walked half a mile before the crying started again. Not from her arms, from the trees. A baby's cry. Same pitch, same sound. She looked down. Jacob was silent, asleep, still smiling. She stopped, listened. The cry moved, left to right, then closer, then far, then 3 steps behind her. She turned. Nothing. Just the sound, like it was chasing or warning. She walked faster, didn't run, didn't stop. Snow deepened. The tree line thickened. Still the sound followed, but Jacob didn't stir. By the time she reached the ridge, it was gone. The cry, the wind, everything. Just her, and the baby, and the map in her coat that felt heavier than it had an hour ago. She sat by a log, fed him the last of her water. He took it like he knew how. No choking, no mess, just steady gulps, like he'd done it before. She wiped his mouth. He looked up, that same smile. She stared at his eyes. They weren't blue anymore. They were brown, and deep, and too knowing. They looked like her father's. She pulled the warped plank from the back wall. It snapped loud, echoed through the small room like a shot. Dust poured out. Behind it, a hollow, and something inside. She reached her hand in. Fingers brushed paper, fabric, metal. She gripped the edge and pulled. A drawer slid out from the wall, shallow, hidden behind old framing. She laid the contents on the floor, one by one. A folded letter, a small cotton ribbon, yellow with brown stains, a leather strap with numbers inked in faded blue, a brass tag stamped with initials. At the bottom, a stamp burned into the wood, a seal, 2 stars above an eye, the governor's crest. She stared at it too long. Her breath slowed. She looked back at the baby, still asleep, still smiling. She opened the letter. The handwriting was neat. A woman's hand. Born during frost. Male. Strong. No name given. Approved for transport. Final collection pending signature. VH. She folded it fast, pressed her fingers into the floor. She had seen that name once, in a letter the sheriff burned years ago. She stood. I looked at the wall, ran her palm across it, tapped the boards. One echoed. She jammed the rifle butt into the corner. It cracked. A board fell loose. Behind it, another space, deeper, wider. She dropped to her knees and peered in. A second room, no door, just darkness. She crawled in. The air was thick, not moldy, not dead, just wrong. She lit a match. The flame shook, but it held. The walls were lined with shelves, crates, more ribbons, more tags, dozens. each wrapped in muslin, each labeled. Some had dates, some had initials, some just numbers. One said property of ER, another had her own mother's initials, JR. She didn't breathe. She backed out fast, held the match until it burned her skin. Back in the main room, she stood with her back to the wall. The baby still slept. She whispered, "How many?" He didn't answer. She didn't expect him to. She opened another bundle. Inside, a birth certificate. Name field blank. Father, classified. Mother, unfit. Signed, GOV/ER/027. Same seal in the corner. She stepped outside, took a long breath. Hold it. Let it go slow. The trees still stood, still watched. She leaned against the porch rail and looked at the child in her arms. "Not the first," she whispered. He opened one eye, closed it again. She heard the door creak. It hadn't moved, but something inside had. She went back in, lit the stove higher, not for heat, just to see. She carried the child to the shelf, showed him the drawer, showed him the letters. He didn't look, didn't react. She took the badge from her pocket, the one from the sheriff's desk. Hold it beside the tag marked ER. The same steel, the same curve, the same hands made both. She sat down, put the baby in her lap, touched his cheek. He leaned into it. That same strange warmth. She looked at the room again. The tags, the ribbons, the names that weren't names. She whispered, "This is a breeding place." Her voice cracked. The cabin didn't answer. It never would. Shovel in hand, snow falling. The ground behind the cabin was uneven, pocked like earth, never healed. Grass had died in patches. Frost clung to bare dirt. She stabbed the shovel into it. The first cut crunched shallow. She pushed harder, dug until her arms ached. The baby slept in the cradle inside. The door cracked so she could hear if he cried. But he hadn't. Not once since she spoke his name. She dug deeper. The earth gave way fast. Too fast. She hit cloth. I pulled it free. A muslin wrap, the same as the one that held the map. Stained dark. Small. She unwrapped it with numb fingers. Bones. Tiny. The shape of a child who never saw air. She dropped the cloth, stumbled back, caught her breath sharp. She shoved the shovel into another patch. The soil gave again. Another bundle. And another. Every few feet, another grave. She stopped counting at 7. They weren't deep. None more than 2 feet down, as if whoever buried them knew the ground would not hold. She stood in the circle of holes, breath white, body shaking. "God," she whispered. Something gleamed in the dirt at her boot. She knelt, brushed it out. Metal, a tin badge, bent and tarnished. She lifted it. Sheriff's star. The letters worn. She held it to the lantern's glow. Could still make out the engraving. Not the current sheriff. The one before him. Her uncle's friend. The one who nailed the well shut. She dropped the badge into her coat pocket and leaned on the shovel. Her head spun. Her mother's scream came back clear. The night she vanished. It wasn't from drowning. It wasn't from madness. It was from this place. From graves like these. The wind picked up. Snow fell harder. It hissed against the cabin walls. She jammed the shovel into one last mound. Hit wood. Not a box. Not a coffin. Just a splintered crib leg. She dug with her hands now. Nails breaking. Skin tearing. She pulled it free. The wood rotted softly. But something tied around it. A ribbon. Pink once. Now dirty, stiff with age. Her mother's initials stitched into the fabric. JR. She held it against her chest, shaking harder now. The graves around her waited. The cabin watched. And inside, the baby finally began to cry. She barged into his office. The door slammed against the wall, rattling the window panes. He looked up from his desk, startled, a cigar half dead in his hand. "You knew," she said. He didn't answer. Just sat there with his jaw tight, eyes fixed on the map she dropped across his papers. It unfolded wide, red ink cutting sharp against the lantern glow. "Behind that cabin," she said, "dozens of graves. Small ones. Shallow. Are you going to tell me you didn't know?" He leaned back slowly, smoke curling out his nose. "What were you doing up there?" "Digging." "Shouldn't have." She stepped closer. "But I did." "You always had your mama's temper. And you always had your silence." He flicked the cigar into the tray. "That ground was meant to stay closed. You tried to close it, didn't you? That's why the badge was there. I found it, buried with one of the children." He blinked slowly. "Say something," she snapped. He looked past her to the wall. Ain't much left to say. Then tell me why. You wouldn't understand. Try me. He stood, heavy boots creaking against the floorboards. He pulled a key from his pocket and unlocked the cabinet behind him. She watched as he dragged out a bundle wrapped in burlap. He laid it on the desk, unrolled it. A quilt. Old. Faded. Stitched with names, initials, dates. She stared. Who made this? He didn't answer. Her hands traced one square, a date beside it, then another. Each patch carried something, letters, a number, a year. Some were unfinished, as if the stitching stopped halfway. Then she saw her own name, clear, full. The thread is darker than the rest. She looked up fast. He grabbed the quilt, tried to fold it, and pushed it toward the stove. She lunged, caught his arm. Let go, he barked. No. He shoved, but she didn't move. You don't want to read more, he growled. I already did. You don't understand what it means. It means you knew. All this time. He yanked, tore part of the quilt free, shoved it into the stove. Flames leapt. She ripped the rest back, smothered the fire with her hands. The smoke filled the room, choking. You're not burning it, she said, voice raw. He slammed his hand on the desk. You think this is justice? Reading old thread and bones? It's survival. You call burying babies survival? You think I put them there? You didn't stop it either. His face hardened. There's things bigger than stopping, things you can't fight. I've been fighting them since I was born. He stared at her long. His shoulders slumped. Maybe you have. She spread the quilt flat again. Her finger followed the lines of thread, one by one. All these names, they're real children. Yes. And mine stitched with theirs. Yes. Her voice shook. Why? He sat heavily in the chair. The light caught his face, carved deep shadows across it. Because you were never meant to be outside that cabin. She froze. What did you say? He looked down. Your mama brought you out, said you were hers. But we knew. Everyone knew. You were born up there. Her breath caught. No. Yes. You're lying. I wish I was. You're saying she stole me. She saved you. Her throat burned. From what? His eyes lifted to hers. For the first time, no smoke, no calm, just fear. From being stitched into the ground like the rest. The fire popped in the stove. The quilt smoked where the edge had burned. She pressed her hand against her square, against her name, against the truth that cut deeper than any blade. You knew, she whispered. I did. All this time, he nodded. And you let me walk this town like I belonged here. You did belong. To her. She claimed you. That's more than most got. She shook her head. Number you don't get to dress this as kindness. He looked away. I buried what I could. Lied when I had to. You want to call it weakness? Fine. But I kept you alive. Her voice cracked. Alive to what? He stood again. Fists tight. Alive to speak. To walk. To stand here right now calling me a coward. The others don't get that. Her hands pressed harder into the quilt. The thread itched against her skin. She looked at him with eyes that no longer wavered. You were born in that cabin too. She woke with smoke in her throat, coughed hard, grabbed for the lamp on the nightstand. Its flame was dead, but the air burned sharp. She stumbled to the door, shoved it open. Her porch was blackened. The rail half burned, embers crawling across the boards. Whoever lit it hadn't stayed. She grabbed the water bucket, doused what was left. Steam hissed in her face. When it cleared, she saw the message carved into the step. One word, return. She stared until her knees gave out, until the smoke settled inside her chest. By noon, she was in the sheriff's office again. She slammed the burned splinter down on his desk. You think this is enough warning? He didn't look surprised. Could have been worse. Who sent it? Same folks who sent every cry you've been hearing. You mean the governor? He lit a match, smoked slowly. His hands reached further than fire. He wants me back there. He nodded once. You and that boy both. Her jaw tightened. The child in the cabin, not the first, he cut in. And not the last. He didn't argue. She leaned across the desk. My mother, tell me everything. Now. His eyes flicked to the quilt folded in the corner. You sure? Yes. He sighed heavily. She was taken young, same as the rest. Breeding stock, they called it. Governor's program. Keep the bloodline strong. Keep the land tied to his name. She gripped the desk. And you let it happen. I was a deputy. Orders came down. Nobody said no back then. But she got out. He nodded slowly. Slipped one night. Pregnant. She ran south. Hide in plain sight. With me. With you, he said. She swallowed hard. You helped her. I covered her tracks. Told the town she drowned. Easier that way. Her hands shook. But you branded me. He didn't speak. You did, didn't you? He tapped ash into the tray. Wasn't just me. The governor marked every child that came from that cabin, so they'd always know. Know what? Which ones belonged to him? Her breath caught. She walked out before he said more. The air outside felt thick, hotter than it should have been. She couldn't stop coughing, couldn't shake the taste of ash. At home, she tore off her coat, pulled her shirt loose. Her fingers traced her shoulder, raised skin, a mark. 3 curved lines burned deep into her flesh. She'd never noticed before. Now it glared. Proof. She sank to the floor, the taste of smoke still raw in her throat. She opened the cabin door again. It groaned, same as before. The smell hit her first. Old milk, damp wood, smoke that never left the walls. The child stirred in her arms but did not cry. He blinked, wide-eyed, as if he knew why she'd come. She set him down on the table, uncorked the tin of gasoline, poured slowly. The floor drank it up, dark stains spreading under her boots. The cradle rocked once, empty now, but it waited like it knew its turn. She doused it. Don't look at me like that, she whispered to the boy. He did. No whimper, no kick, just eyes, calm and steady. She struck a match. Flame flared, hissed in her hand. She touched it to the cradle. It caught on fast. The old wood shrieked as it burned. She didn't flinch. The fire spread quickly, crawled across the floorboards, licked the shelves, climbed the walls. Letters curled black, ribbons shriveled, birth tags hissed into ash. She turned to the child, still quiet, still watching. Cry, she said. Nothing. Cry. His lips parted. A sound came, not a cry. A laugh, small, thin, but clear. Her chest went cold. She snatched him up, held him close, though her arms shook. The fire roared behind them. Who are you? She asked. He blinked. Smoke thickened. Answer me. Only silence, only warmth from his skin. She carried him through the door. The night air hit sharp. The cabin behind them glowed, flames bleeding through every crack. The wood collapsed. Sparks rained onto the snow. She didn't look back long, just enough to see the cradle collapse. She walked across the clearing. Snow hissed under her boots, melting where sparks landed. The child shifted in her arms, turned his face toward the fire, still smiling. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. He leaned against her chest. Calm. Too calm. At the tree line, she stopped. I looked back one last time. The cabin sagged. The roof is gone. Fire swallowing the hidden room, the seals, the governor's mark. The graves behind it steamed where heat touched frost. She breathed deep. Smoke clawed her throat. She held the boy tighter. No more names, she said, and walked away. The cabin burned behind her, its watch finally broken. She dropped the folded map into the black of the well. It disappeared without sound, like it was swallowed whole. No splash, no echo, just gone. She stood over the rim, hands gripping stone slick with frost. Breath burned in her chest. The boards that once sealed it lay broken at her feet. She didn't cover it this time. She wanted it open. I wanted it to breathe. The wind shifted, carrying smoke still clinging to her hair from the cabin. She leaned forward, whispered down into the dark. No more names. But her words didn't settle. They came backs up in a sigh. She turned. The house loomed behind her. Her mother's house, sagging but alive. Her boy was inside. She could see his shadow move past the window, small, safe, unaware. She pulled her coat tighter and walked to the porch. The burned step still bore the carved word return. She let her boot crush it. Inside, the fire in the stove had burned down to coals. Her boy looked up from the chair, clutching his quilt. Have you gone long? He asked. Long enough. You smell like smoke. The cabin caught fire. He tilted his head. Did you burn it? She didn't answer. He didn't press. Just turned back to the quilt, tracing the stitches with his finger. Later that night, when he slept, she sat at the table, laid the ribbon with her mother's initials flat, laid the tin badge beside it. The quilt square burned at the edge. Pieces of truth, pieces of a curse. She held her head in her hands until the lantern burned low. That's when she heard it. A cry. Not her boy's. Not from the house. From the trees. Thin. Fragile. The same pitch as the one in the cabin. Her stomach clenched. She pushed back from the table, grabbed her coat, her rifle. Outside, the night pressed close. Frost sparkled faint under the moon. The cry came again. This time, nearer. She walked past the porch, past the well, into the yard. "Show yourself," she whispered. Nothing moved, but the cry echoed, pulling her toward the tree line. She followed. Her boots crunched through dead leaves. Breath came sharp in her throat. Every few steps, the sound shifted. Left, right, ahead. Always close, always just far enough. "Where are you?" she demanded. No answer, just another cry. She stopped at the old fence. Beyond it, the woods thickened. She rested the rifle on the post, scanning the dark. "Come out." The cry stopped. Silence cut deep. Her hands shook against the rifle stock. Then, another sound. Not a cry. A laugh. Small. High. Mocking. Her chest tightened. She aimed into the dark. "I'll shoot." The laugh faded. Leaves rustled. A branch cracked. Then nothing. She lowered the rifle, turned back toward the house. That's when she saw it. On the fence post beside her. A bonnet. Small. Pink. The same as the one from the cabin, but cleaner. Newer. She snatched it up, heart hammering. It smelled like soap, like fresh cloth, like it had never burned. She walked back fast, clutching the bonnet. Her boots struck hard against the dirt, as if sound alone could keep her steady. At the porch, she froze. The well was open, and from it rose steam. She stepped closer, peered inside. No bottom, just black. But the steam smelled like milk, like warmth, like a crib. She stumbled back, clutched the rifle tight. Inside the house, her boy stirred. She rushed in, slammed the door, bolted it. He sat up in bed. "What is it?" "Nothing." "You're scared." "No, you are." He stood, quilt trailing. "Something's outside." "You didn't hear it." "I did." He looked her in the eye, too steady for his age. "It's calling." She shook her head. "Go back to bed." He didn't. She sat him at the table, spread the ribbon, the badge, the bonnet. "These belong to women who came before us. They were taken, used, buried." He touched the ribbon. "Grandma's?" "Yes." He touched the badge. "Sheriff's?" "Yes." Then the bonnet. "Whose?" She swallowed hard. "One of the others. One who didn't make it home." He looked up. "Then why's it here?" She had no answer. The cry came again. Through the walls. Closer this time. He flinched. She grabbed the rifle, stood. "Stay." He reached for her coat. "Don't go." "I have to." He shook his head. "It won't stop." "I'll make it." He looked at her for a long moment. "You can't shoot what isn't there." She pulled away, heart heavy, and stepped outside. The trees waited. The cry drifted low, circling the house. She followed it to the well, stared down again. This time she saw movement, not light, not shadow, something shifting deep, a shape, small, rocking, like a cradle. She raised the rifle, aimed straight down, finger on the trigger. The cry stopped. Her hand shook. Then a voice rose, not a baby, a woman's, faint, torn. "Mama." She froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Again, the voice. "Mama?" Her knees buckled. She pulled the rifle back. Dawn came gray. She hadn't slept. Sat on the porch steps with the rifle across her knees. The bonnet beside her. Her boy pushed the door open. "You're still out here." "I'm not going back in." He sat beside her, a quilt wrapped around his shoulders. "You think it'll stop?" "No." He nodded, quiet. "What if it's not babies?" he asked. "What then?" "What if it's us?" She looked at him. His eyes were steady, too old. "Then we don't answer," she said. The day passed without sound. She walked the yard, checked the well, boarded it again, though she knew it wouldn't hold. At dusk, the cry came once more, this time from deeper in the woods. She stood, took her rifle. Her boy grabbed her hand. "You'll leave me." "No." "You will." She cupped his cheek. "I'll come back." "You might not." "I will." He let go. She walked to the tree line. The cry pulled her deeper, past the fence, past the frost. Every tree carries a mark now, carved fresh. A single word repeated. Her. 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 She gripped the rifle tighter. "Then come take me," she muttered. She found nothing, only silence, only cold. When she returned, the boy was waiting on the porch. "You found it?" "No." "You will." She ruffled his hair, heart aching. "Maybe." That night, she sat at the table again, stared at the ribbon, the bonnet, the badge, stared at the quilt square burned at the edge. Every piece told her the same thing. It wasn't finished. The line wasn't broken. It was waiting. Near dawn, the cry came once more, software gentle, from the trees. Her boy sat up. She met his eyes. He didn't speak. Neither did she. She reached for her mother's old rifle, stood, stepped outside. The cry floated again, pulling her forward. She walked toward the trees, not afraid anymore,